Hey everybody, in this video we are going to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So if you saw the previous videos, we used lots of methods so far: graphing, factoring, square root property, and completing the square. So this is the last formula or last method we're going to use for solving, and here is the steps. So number one, make sure that the equation equals 0. This has to be true in order to even use this formula. Number two, identify what A, B, and C are equal to. And then number three, plug them into the quadratic formula and then simplify. So this is the quadratic formula. Now, I highly recommend that you spend some time memorizing this because it's not going to go away and you will use it in the future. So this comes up often and it's a very quick way to solve quadratic equations, especially some that you can't factor. Like you tried factoring and it didn't quite work. So notice something that I do want to mention is that the fraction bar goes all the way across. I see a lot of people accidentally stop this fraction bar kind of short. They would do something like this. Okay, so please be aware that the fraction bar goes all the way across. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. Solving number one here. And we have 2x squared equals negative 4x minus 1. Now, right away, there is a problem because this does not equal 0. So let's move everything over to one side. I'm just going to move everything to the left. So I'm going to add 4x and 1 to both sides of this equal sign. And so we end up with, I know it looks a little messy over there, but it's 2x squared plus 4x plus 1, and now it equals 0. So then we can move on and identify A, B, and C. So A is the coefficient on x squared, so that's 2. B is the coefficient on x, so that's 4. And then C is the constant in the back, which I realize right now I forgot to write. It's a 1, so that's 1. Now, do be careful. If any of these were negative, you would keep their signs with them. So if it was negative 4 for B, I would write negative 4. So then I go right into my formula. And so the formula, I'm just going to say the letters where I'm going to place them. So just so you know, it's negative B plus and minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. Okay, so I set this up, and if you get into this habit of putting open parentheses, you won't mess up on any kind of minus signs or anything like that. So let's start by filling in a. We knew that a, if you look back here, was 2. So it was minus 4ac, and then on the bottom was 2a. Oh, I want to put my number, 2. Okay, let's go with b next. B was 4, so minus b plus and minus square root of b squared. And then my last one, c, was 1. Okay, and you can fill them in any order you want. I was just keeping track of a, b, and c with you right there. And then notice what this is. This is actually the answer. This is x. But you don't ever want to just leave it looking this way. We do want to make it look nicer. So that's why I say to simplify. So let's start by figuring out what's inside this square root here. And so 4 squared inside the square root, 16 minus, in the back, 4 times 2 times 1. So that's minus 8. Okay. On bottom, we have 4. Now, be very careful. I know it might be tempting to think, let's divide out these 4s here. But technically, we cannot because there's that plus and minus square root. So let's just keep simplifying. So we have x equals minus 4 plus and minus square root 8 over 4. And the square root, just spend some time doing some side work with that if you can simplify it. And so I'm just going to break down square root 8 as square root 4 times square root 2, which is 2 times square root 2. And so then I can go back into my answer. X equals negative 4 plus and minus 2 square root 2 all over 4. And now is the time to divide out anything on top and bottom that I can. And 2 goes into every single term here. So if I divide the top and the bottom by 2, I'm going to be able to simplify this answer and say that x equals negative 2 plus and minus square root 2 all over 2. Okay, let's look at the next one. So number 2 here, notice it does not equal 0. So we're going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and then we'll identify a, b, and c. So n squared minus n plus 2 equals 0. Okay, so in this case, the leading coefficient on n squared is an invisible 1. So a is 1. The leading coefficient on the linear term, the term with just a single n, is actually negative 1. So take the sign with it. And then the constant term is 2. So those are our values we're going to plug into our quadratic formula. Now notice also that your variable is not x on this one. So n equals. So I'm going to go right into plugging in. So negative b, so b is negative 1. Okay. Plus and minus, based on our formula, square root of b squared, okay, so negative 1 squared, minus, it's going to be 4ac, so 4 times 1 times 2, and then that's going to be all over 2 times a, so 2 times 1. Okay, and then that's our answer, just like before, but it doesn't look nice, so let's make this simplified and look way better. So when you use parentheses, this is a good reason to do so because of a situation like this. You end up with a plus 1 in the front. So 1 plus and minus, square root of, inside your square root, we have 1 minus 8 all over 2. Okay, and so we have here that n equals 1 plus and minus square root negative 7, which that's what makes it imaginary, over 2. And so the square root, I'm just going to take a side work step to break this down. Square root 7 times square root negative 1, which is how we know that this is going to have I. So this is I times square root 7. So then I can say that the answer is n equals 1 plus and minus I times square root 7 all over 2. And that is as simplified as that answer can get because none of these terms can combine. All right, and our last one here. So we saw the same equation over and over in our previous videos because we've been solving it all of our various methods. So we're going to try this one more time using our quadratic formula, but this time you'll see that using the quadratic formula is actually not the most efficient one. In the previous video, using the square root property was actually the most efficient one for solving this. Because why it's not efficient is that we have to FOIL first. So x squared minus 6x plus 9 minus 1 equals 0. X squared minus 6x plus 8. So now we're ready to find a, b, and c. So it just took some extra steps. Okay, so a is the invisible 1 in front of x squared. B is negative 6, the number on x, and then c is 8. Okay, so just plug these right into our quadratic formula, and we have x equals negative b, which is negative times negative 6, plus and minus square root b squared, or negative 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 8, all over 2 times a, or 2 times 1. And let's make this look a little better. In the front here, we have positive 6 plus and minus square root. We have negative 6 squared, so that's 36, minus, in the back, that's going to be 32. And then that's all over 2. Let's keep making this look better. And so we end up with 6 plus and minus. That's going to be square root 4. So this answer is looking pretty nice because we actually know the square root of 4. So this is 6 plus and minus 2 over 2. Now be careful, don't box this in because we can definitely simplify this. This is going to be 6 plus 2, I'm separating it into 2 answers, over 2, and then 6 minus 2 over 2. And so we end up here with 8 over 2 equals 4, and 4 over 2, which is just 2. Okay, so that's it for solving quadratic equations. If you're interested in the previous videos, if you haven't seen them already, we did solve using factoring, square root property, completing the square, as well as graphing.